The Minnesota Vikings, their 2024 NFL schedule is officially out, and you can find that anywhere. And you can listen to my recent podcast on Wednesday where I discussed the schedule leak and evaluated the positives and negatives from the Minnesota Vikings schedule. And hey, while you're here, just hit that subscribe button right there. Then the Minnesota Tim podcast will show up in your feed when I do a podcast, which I do multiple per week on the Minnesota Vikings. So, now that the schedule is out, there are people evaluating it. The odds are coming out for every single game. And the Minnesota Vikings are heavy underdogs based on the NFL Oddsmakers. So I'm looking at the schedule. I'm looking at the odds. And you can find this on MinnesotaSportsFan.com. He's a guy that's a writer for the Minnesota Sports Fan and by the Minnesota Sports Fan. And I just enjoy his content. So the odds makers are sharing that they do not believe in the Minnesota Vikings. They only have the Minnesota Vikings favored to win 3 games out of 17. So you look at these games that they're favored to win. They aren't favored to win a game until week 9 versus the Indianapolis Colts at home, -1. On the road against the Tennessee Titans, -1. And at home versus the Arizona Cardinals, -1.5. So even the games that the Minnesota Vikings are favored to win, they are only favored to win them by 1 point. Now, I don't buy too much into odds makers at this point in the season because all of this stuff fluctuates even to the point of the game. You look at the NBA and lines are constantly changing until tip-off. You look at the NFL and lines are constantly changing until kickoff. So, I don't buy a whole lot into this, but this does tell us something. It tells us that people in the NFL and their odds makers do not believe in Sam Darnold's ability as a quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings. And I'm going to take a stand right now. And I'm going to say that Sam Darnold is going to be way better than anybody anticipates with the Minnesota Vikings. And, you can hear it over and over again. Oh, his situation with the Jets, his situation with the Carolina Panthers. Could those situations get any worse? Now he's entering a situation with Kevin O'Connell as the head coach. The weapons that the Minnesota Vikings have and as the wide receivers with Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, even Brandon Powell's a decent wide receiver 3. TJ Hawkinson, he won't be back probably until October or November. But Aaron Jones, JJ, Jordan Addison, these guys are good enough to help Sam Darnold have a successful first season with the Minnesota Vikings. And he's on a 1-year deal. So this is a huge year for Sam Darnold. Because if he has a great year, there is going to be a team, a bottom feeder team in the NFL that's going to come calling. Albeit the Carolina Panthers, if Bryce Young stinks it up for another year. There's teams all around the league that are looking for starting quarterbacks. Las Vegas Raiders, what if Sam Darnold has a heck of a season? Throws 25 touchdowns to 7 interceptions. Very efficient. You better believe that there's going to be a team that comes calling like the Raiders somewhere in the NFL. So I think this is more of a shot against the belief in Sam Darnold than it is the Minnesota Vikings themselves. Because top to bottom, the Minnesota Vikings roster is better than it was last year. The defense is improved. The offense should be improved. The only thing that's missing, which is the biggest piece on an NFL roster, is Sam Darnold. Or is Kirk Cousins, but replaced by Sam Darnold. So that's really going to be the key, is how efficient and effective can Sam Darnold be. And I'm not blowing you away with any ridiculous takes in this podcast, but I do believe that the odds that are showing the Minnesota Vikings to only be favored in 3 games, these people are going to regret it, because Sam Darnold is going to enter this NFL season, and he's going to play better than he has ever played in his NFL career. Even the games that he played with the San Francisco 49ers were clearly better than the games that he played for the Jets and the Carolina Panthers. You've got to think about the situation when judging this quarterback. And he is entering a heck of a situation right now. Because J.J. McCarthy, as much as people want to believe that he's going to start week 1, he ain't going to start until at least mid-season. So Sam Darnold's the guy, week 1, Sammy D, and I think he is going to play better than he has ever played in his entire career, and the Minnesota Vikings are going to shock some people. That's what I believe. Now, this take is presented by Hokeland Farm. Hokeland Farm, called Jared at 952-491-1541. That's 952-491-1541 for the best rotationally grazed 100% grass-fed beef. This beef is sold in quarters and halves, and he has custom sample packs so you can try before you buy. Contact Jared for 20% off your first order by mentioning the Minnesota Tim podcast. 952-491-1541. So this story came out in the New York Post on May 16th. So yesterday or a couple days ago, something like that. And the headline is astonishing. And I can't help but talk about this. The headline is, how an epic fart helped the Knicks get the Knicks ready for Game 5 rout of the Pacers. And let me just read this, because this is the funniest thing I've ever seen. It says, teams find a lot of ways to motivate themselves for big games. A fart, though, might just be a first for any professional sports team, but for the Knicks, it might have just been the secret to their success in their Game 5 win on Tuesday night. The Athletics' Fred Katz revealed on the Knicks Film School podcast on Thursday that an epic fart helped loosen up the Knicks locker room ahead of the blowout win that put them on the cusp of clinching the second-round series. While the exact player who let out the crucial toot was not revealed, Katz appeared on the Dan Le Batard show with Stu Goss and provided more details on the event. Katz told Le Batard that the fart had plenty of noise, but didn't have any odor to it, calling it loud but proud. It was purely audio. As a matter of fact, when it happened, it strung along for a lot longer than one might expect for a fart of that volume and that context. For clarification, I fart all the time. I fart all the time in front of my wife and in front of my kids, which is, to be honest, something that I need to cut out because I don't want my kids farting everywhere they go. But at home, I fart all the time. And continues here. It actually didn't get a reaction audibly at all. It got pure silence and a look over to the one player, and that one player looked around as if he was being inconspicuous and said with a completely straight face, "Something's up with the pipes in here." And that got the huge laugh. Nothing like loosening up everybody before a big, crucial Game 5 opportunity when the series is tied 2-2. Then letting out a massive rip. I just had to read this article because I'm someone that can appreciate a good fart. In fact, I Dutch oven myself sometimes because, according to Healthline.com, farts are healthy for you. They help your heart and they help your lungs. Google it. Google, are farts healthy to smell? So I Dutch oven myself to give myself the health factor, to give myself improvement in that specific area in my life. I would commend all of you guys to do the exact same thing if you're brave enough. Thank you for listening to this episode. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button right there. And if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please rate, review, and follow this pod wherever you're listening to this podcast. Everyone, thank you for listening and have a great day.